Sarah Chun stood at the massive window of the Unity station and looked out at the stars. 3 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. Now, 12 different alien species called this place home. The Galactic Council had built Unity Station as a meeting place where all species could talk and trade. Sarah adjusted her blue diplomatic uniform and checked the time. In 10 minutes, she would meet with Veltar again. The Karathi ambassador had become her closest friend among all the aliens. This surprised many people because the Karathi were so different from humans. The Karathi looked like walking trees. They had brown, bark-like skin and green leaves that grew from their heads and arms. They could feel what others were feeling, which made them very good at understanding emotions. Most humans found this scary at first, but Sarah had learned to trust Veltar completely. A soft chime told her that someone was at the door. Sarah pressed the button to open it. Veltar walked in, moving slowly as all Karathi did. The alien was 8 feet tall and had to duck under the doorframe. "Hello, my friend Sarah," Veltar said. The Karathi spoke through a device that turned their plant language into human words. "I bring good news about the Mars project," Sarah smiled. "The crops are growing well?" "Better than we hoped. Your people have prepared the soil perfectly. In 6 months, Mars will have its first harvest of Karathi food plants. They will grow much faster than Earth plants and need less water." This was exactly what humanity needed. Earth was getting crowded, and Mars was still difficult to live on. The Karathi farming technology would help millions of humans move to the Red Planet. "The council meeting is in 1 hour," Sarah said. "Are you ready?" Veltar's leaves rustled, which meant the alien was worried. "I am ready, but I fear the others will not listen. The Zephyrians are speaking against humans again." Sarah had expected this. The Zephyrians were tall, gray aliens who ruled a large empire. They had been in space for thousands of years and thought they were better than everyone else. Their leader, High Commander Zaxxon, hated humans. "What are they saying now?" Sarah asked. "They say humans are too violent. They point to your wars and your weapons. They say you will bring violence to the galaxy." Sarah felt angry but tried not to show it. "We've been peaceful for 3 years. We've followed every rule." "I know this. I tell them humans have good hearts. I tell them you saved my trade ships from the pirates. I tell them you share your medical knowledge freely, but they do not want to hear. The space pirates were criminals who attacked ships carrying valuable goods. Human warships had rescued several Karathi vessels from these pirates. This had started the friendship between the two species." "Thank you for defending us," Sarah said. "Not many species would. You defended us first. When the pirates attacked our ships, other species said it was not their problem. Only humans came to help." They walked together toward the council chambers. The hallways of Unity Station were huge to fit all the different alien body types. Sarah and Veltar passed other diplomats from various worlds. The Altarians looked like giant squids and floated in water-filled suits. The Kovan were small, furry creatures that traveled in groups. The hegemony representatives were robots controlled by computer minds. Each species kept to themselves and watched the humans with suspicion. "Tell me honestly," Sarah said as they walked. "Do you think we'll ever be accepted?" Veltar's leaves rustled again. "Some species fear change. Humans bring much change very quickly. In 3 years, you have built more ships than some species build in 30 years. You learn new technology faster than anyone expected." This was true. Human engineers were amazing at taking alien technology and making it better. They had improved spaceship engines, created new types of medicine, and even found ways to make food taste better. But this rapid progress scared other species. They entered the council chambers. The room was circular with seats for each of the 12 species. The Karathi and human sections were next to each other. Across the room, the Zephyrian delegation sat in their silver chairs. "High Commander," Zaxxon was already speaking when Sarah and Veltar took their seats. Zephyrian was 9 feet tall with skin like metal. His voice was cold and harsh. "The human expansion must be controlled," Zaxxon was saying. "They now have colonies on 4 worlds. Their trade ships appear in new systems every month. This rapid growth threatens the stability of our galaxy. Sarah wanted to stand up and argue, but she had learned to wait her turn. The council had rules about who could speak when the Altarian representative, Ambassador Krill, spoke next. The humans have broken no laws. Their expansion follows all established protocols. Laws can be changed, Zaxxon replied. We must consider the greater good of the galaxy. Finally, it was Veltar's turn to speak. The Karathi stood slowly and looked around the room. Honored council members, Veltar began. I have worked closely with the humans for 3 years. I have felt their emotions and seen their hearts. Yes, they can be violent when threatened, but they are also capable of great kindness and loyalty. Pretty words, Zaxxon interrupted. But we have seen their history. They have fought wars for thousands of years. They have weapons that can destroy entire planets. So do we all, Veltar said calmly. The difference is that humans choose not to use them. When pirates attacked our ships, humans could have demanded payment for their help. Instead, they asked for nothing but friendship. Sarah felt proud of her friend's words. Veltar always knew the right thing to say, the Corvan delegate. A small furry creature named Pip spoke up. The humans have shared medical technology that saved millions of our people from the Red Plague. They ask for nothing in return. They want something, Zaxxon said. They always want something. Humans are clever. They give gifts now to gain trust. Then they will demand much later. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported humanity, but most remained neutral. Only the Karathi consistently defended human actions. Sarah noticed that Zaxxon was taking notes every time Veltar spoke. After the meeting, Sarah and Veltar walked to the observation deck. The stars looked the same as always, but Sarah felt that something was changing. Zaxxon hates us, Sarah said, and he hates you for defending us. I am not afraid of Zaxxon. The truth is stronger than his fear. What if he convinces the other species that we're dangerous? Veltar's leaves rustled in the artificial wind. Then we will prove him wrong by our actions. 2 weeks later, Sarah received an urgent message from Earth. A Karathi trade convoy had been attacked by pirates near the Outer Rim. 3 ships were destroyed, and hundreds of Karathi were dead or missing. Captain James Rodriguez of the UES. Defiance was already heading to help, but he was 2 days away. The pirates might be gone by then? Sarah found Veltar in the station's garden, a place where the Karathi liked to spend time among growing plants. I heard about the attack, Sarah said. I'm sorry. My cousin was on one of those ships, Veltar said quietly. She was carrying seeds to start new forests on our colony worlds. Captain Rodriguez will find the pirates. I know he will try. Humans always try to help their friends. That night Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Veltar's cousin and all the other Karathi who had died. The next morning brought good news. Captain Rodriguez had found the pirates and rescued 67 Karathi survivors. The criminals were now in prison. But Sarah noticed that Zaxxon was asking many questions about human ship movements. He wanted to know how Captain Rodriguez had found the pirates so quickly. He asked about human military capabilities and the locations of human bases. He's planning something, Sarah told Veltar during their daily walk. I sense great anger from him when he looks at humans, Veltar agreed. But also fear. He fears what humans might become. What do you mean? Humans make friends easily. The Corvan like you? Some Altarians respect you? Even a few hegemonies find humans interesting. Zaxxon sees this and worries that humans will change the balance of power in the galaxy. Sarah had never thought about it that way. For 3 years, humans had been focused on survival and building relationships. They hadn't considered that their growing friendships might threaten the established order. Do you think he would do something to stop us? Veltar was quiet for a long time. I hope not. But I sense dark thoughts from the Zephyrian delegation. They meet in secret and do not include other species in their discussions. That evening, Sarah sent a coded message to Earth. She warned that the Zephyrians might be planning something against humanity. The response came back quickly. Admiral Hayes assured her that Earth's defenses were ready for any threat. But Sarah worried about their alien friends. The Kurathi had no strong military. They were peaceful by nature and relied on other species for protection. If something happened to humanity, what would happen to them? 3 days later, Veltar came to Sarah's quarters looking very upset. His leaves were brown around the edges, which happened when Karathi were extremely worried. "I have received disturbing news from my government," Veltar said. "Zephyrian. Ships have been seen near our border worlds. They claim to be conducting training exercises. That doesn't sound good." "It is not. The Zephyrians have never shown interest in our space before, and there are too many ships for simple training." Sarah immediately contacted Admiral Hayes on Earth. The Admiral promised to send ships to patrol near Kurathi space, but it would take time for them to arrive. "We need to be careful," Sarah told Veltar. "If the Zephyrians are planning something, we can't give them an excuse to act." But Veltar looked sadder than Sarah had ever seen him. "My friend, I fear it may be too late for caution. The council met in secret session yesterday. Only 8 species were invited. Humans and Kurathi were not among them." Sarah felt a chill. Secret council meetings were rare and usually meant serious trouble. "Do you know what they discussed?" "No, but I sense great darkness coming. Some of my people have suggested that we should distance ourselves from humans to avoid trouble. But I told them that true friends do not abandon each other when danger approaches." That night, Veltar sent his final regular report to the Kurathi homeworld. In it, he wrote about the wonderful progress of the Mars farming project and the strong friendship between their peoples. He ended with words that would later break Sarah's heart. "The humans have shown us that different species can work together for the good of all. Whatever comes next, I'm proud to call them friends." The next morning, all communication with Karathi space went silent. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and stared at the empty space where Verdania should have been. For 3 days, his ship had traveled through hyperspace to reach the Kurathi homeworld. Admiral Hayes had ordered him to find out why all communication with Karathi space had stopped. Marcus had expected to find Karathi ships waiting to escort him to the planet. He had expected to see the beautiful green world that Veltar had described so many times. Instead, he found nothing but darkness and silence. "Sir, I'm picking up debris on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Kim Park, his science officer. "Lots of debris." "Put it on the main screen." The view screen showed tiny dots scattered across space. As they got closer, Marcus realized what he was looking at: pieces of ships, pieces of space stations, pieces of things that had once been alive and working. "My God," whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist. She had come to the bridge when they entered Karathi space. "What happened here?" "Take us closer to the planet," Marcus ordered, "but keep shields up and weapons ready." As the Defiance moved deeper into the system, the full horror became clear. Verdania hung in space like a burned coal. The planet that had once been covered in vast green forests was now black and lifeless. Huge cracks ran across its surface, glowing red with internal heat. "The planet's crust has been cracked," reported Chief Engineer Walsh over the comm. Whatever hit it was powerful enough to reach the core. Marcus had seen destroyed planets before, but this was different. This wasn't the result of a quick attack. Someone had taken time to make sure nothing could ever live here again. "Sir, I'm detecting artificial radiation signatures," Lieutenant Park said. "Zephyrian plasma cannons and Altarian bioweapons." Dr. Vasquez turned pale. "Bioweapons? They use bioweapons on a planet full of plant life?" Marcus felt sick. The Altarian bioweapons were designed to destroy all organic matter. They turned living things into dust in minutes. Using them on the Karathi was like using fire on a forest. "Take us into orbit," Marcus said quietly. "We need to see everything." The orbital view was even worse. Where Kurathi cities had once stood, there were now only glass craters. The planet's beautiful ring system, made of floating gardens and research stations, was gone. Nothing remained but scattered metal and rock. "Sir, I'm detecting a weak signal from the surface," Lieutenant Park reported. It's coming from what used to be the capital city. Can you identify it? It's a recording device, Kurathy technology, still broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Marcus looked at Dr. Vasquez. She nodded slowly. They both knew they had to hear what that recording contained. Beam it up and play it in the conference room. All senior officers report immediately. 10 minutes later, Marcus sat with his officers around the conference table. The small Kurathy recording device sat in the center, still blinking with a weak green light. Before we play this, Marcus said, I want everyone to understand what we're looking at here. This is genocide. Someone killed every living thing on this planet and destroyed it so completely that nothing can ever grow here again. Dr. Vasquez activated the device. At first there was only static. Then Veltar's familiar voice filled the room. My name is Veltar, ambassador to the Galactic Council. I am recording this message as the bombardment begins. To any who find this, know that the Kurathy die without regret for our friendship with humanity. The recording crackled with interference, but Veltar's voice continued. The Council came to us 7 days ago. High Commander Zaxxon demanded that we end all contact with humans. He said humans were a threat to galactic stability. He said our friendship with them made us traitors to our own species. There was a sound in the background like thunder, but Marcus knew it was the sound of plasma cannons firing from space. We refused. We told them that friendship is not betrayal. We told them that humans had shown us kindness and loyalty. We told them that we would rather die as friends than live as cowards. More sounds of weapons fire. Veltar's voice became urgent. They brought 8 species with them. Not just Zephyrians, but Altarians, Korvan, and others. Even species that we thought were neutral. They said we were harboring dangerous ideas that could spread to other worlds. Dr. Vasquez was crying now. Lieutenant Park stared at the table with his hands clenched into fists. The bombardment is systematic. They are destroying every city, every farm, every research station. They want to make sure that no trace of Kurathy civilization survives. The thunder grew louder. Veltar had to shout to be heard. To our human friends, know this. They fear what we represented together. A peaceful species and a strong species working as equals. They fear that other species will see this friendship and want the same. There was a new sound now, like breaking glass. The building where Veltar was recording was being destroyed. Sarah, Qian, my dear friend, tell your people that we do not blame them for our fate. Tell them that we chose to stand with them knowing the cost. Tell them that they must be strong now, because the Council will come for them next. The recording dissolved into static for several seconds. When Veltar's voice returned, it was weaker. We die as we lived, believing in the possibility of peace. But peace without strength is only an invitation for evil to grow. Remember us, and do not let our friendship die with us. The recording ended. The conference room was silent except for the sound of Dr. Vasquez quietly crying. Marcus stood up slowly. How long ago did this happen? Lieutenant Park checked his instruments. Based on the radiation decay, I'd say about 5 days ago. It took them 3 days to destroy everything completely. 3 days, Marcus repeated. They took 3 days to murder an entire species. Sir, what are your orders? Asked Commander Jackson, his first officer. Marcus looked around the table at his officers. These were good people who had joined Starfleet to explore space and make friends with alien species. Now they were looking at the remains of genocide. We document everything, Marcus said. Every crater, every piece of debris, every radiation signature. We find out exactly which species participated in this atrocity. And then we take our evidence home to Earth. For the next 6 hours, the Defiance crew worked to record the destruction of Verdania. They found the remains of 47 cities, all turned to glass by plasma bombardment. They found pieces of 600 orbital installations, blown apart by conventional weapons. They found traces of bioweapons in the soil that would prevent anything from growing for 1,000 years, but it was Dr. Vasquez who made the most horrifying discovery. Captain, you need to see this, she called from the science lab. Marcus found her staring at readings from the planet's surface. I've been analyzing the weapon patterns, she said. This wasn't a military strike. This was an execution. What do you mean? Look at the timing. They destroyed the defensive installations first, which makes sense, but then they waited. For almost 6 hours, they waited before beginning the planetary bombardment. Marcus studied the data. Why would they wait? To let the Karathi know what was coming, to let them send messages to other worlds, to let them suffer. The full cruelty of it hit Marcus like a physical blow. The Council hadn't just wanted to kill the Karathi. They had wanted to terrorize them first. There's more, Dr. Vasquez continued. I found communication logs from other Karathi colonies. The Council sent them recordings of Verdania's destruction while it was happening. Every Karathi in the galaxy watched their homeworld die. How many other colonies were there? 17. All destroyed within hours of Verdania. 2.3 billion people, Captain. An entire species wiped out in less than a day. Marcus sat down heavily. He had seen war before, but this was something beyond war. This was extinction by choice. The weapon signatures match 8 different species, Dr. Vasquez continued. The Zephyrians provided the plasma cannons. The Altarians brought bioweapons. The Corvan supplied kinetic bombardment systems. Even some of the neutral species participated. What about the others? The species that didn't participate? According to the cum logs, they were told that the Karathi had developed a dangerous plague that threatened all organic life. They were told that immediate sterilization was necessary to prevent galactic contamination. Marcus laughed bitterly. A plague? They convinced 8 species to commit genocide by lying about a plague. It gets worse, sir. I've been monitoring galactic communication networks. The Council has already issued an official statement about the Karathi. She handed him a datapad with the Council's message. Marcus read it aloud. The Karathi homeworld. And all associated colonies have been sterilized due to the discovery of a class of biological hazard. This action was taken to prevent the spread of dangerous pathogens that could have threatened all organic life in the galaxy. The Galactic Council regrets this necessary action but stands by its commitment to galactic safety. They're not even admitting it was an attack, Marcus said. They're calling it pest control. Sir, there's one more thing. Dr. Vasquez looked nervous. I've been monitoring Earth's diplomatic channels. Ambassador Chun has been trying to contact the Council for 3 days. They're not responding to any human communications. Marcus understood immediately. They're cutting us off, just like they did to the Karathi. Sir, I recommend we return to Earth immediately. The crew is ready to depart on your orders. Marcus looked around the science lab. Through the windows he could see the dead planet below. Somewhere down there? Veltar had died believing that his friendship with humans meant something. No, Marcus said firmly, not yet. We're going to visit every destroyed Karathi colony. We're going to document every crime scene. We're going to collect evidence of every single war crime committed here. Sir, that could take weeks. Earth needs to know what happened. Earth will know. But when they do, they're going to know everything. Every detail, every weapon used, every species that participated. Marcus stood up and looked out at the ruined planet. The Council thinks they can commit genocide and then lie about it. They think the galaxy will just accept their story and move on. He turned back to Dr. Vasquez. They're wrong. Humans don't forget, and we don't forgive. The Defiance spent 12 days visiting the ruins of Karathi civilization. At each colony they found the same pattern. Systematic destruction designed to ensure nothing could ever live there again. They found evidence of torture, of civilians being hunted down and killed for sport, of children being murdered in front of their parents. By the time they finished, the crew was changed. They had started this mission as explorers and diplomats. They were returning home as witnesses to the greatest crime in galactic history on the final day. Marcus stood in his quarters and recorded a message for Admiral Hayes. Admiral, we have completed our investigation of the Karathi genocide. I am attaching complete documentation of all war crimes committed by the Galactic Council and its member species. Every human in Starfleet needs to see this evidence." He paused and looked out his window at the stars. "Ma'am, the Council has declared war on everything we stand for. They have murdered our closest allies and lied about it to the galaxy. They think humans will accept this and continue to play by their rules." Marcus thought about Veltar-S final message about a good person dying alone while believing in friendship and peace. They're about to learn why that was a mistake. Admiral Catherine Hayes stood in the center of the war room, deep beneath the Terran Defense headquarters in Geneva. Around the curved table sat the 12 most powerful humans in the galaxy: presidents, admirals, generals, and intelligence chiefs. From Earth, Luna, Mars, and the outer colonies, on the massive screen above them, the images from Verdania played in silent horror. Burned cities, cracked planets, empty space where billions of Carathi had once lived. Captain Rodriguez had returned from his investigation 3 days ago, and his evidence had changed everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Hayes began, "we are here to decide how humanity responds to the systematic genocide of our allies. Before we begin, I want everyone to understand what we're facing." She touched a control, and the screen showed a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of destroyed Carathi worlds. In 72 hours, 8 species of the Galactic Council murdered 2.3 billion Carathi. Every man, woman, and child of their species is dead. Every city, every farm, every research station has been destroyed. They used bioweapons to make sure nothing can ever grow on those worlds again. President Sarah Chun, who had flown in from Earth that morning, spoke first. "Have we received any response to our diplomatic protests?" "None," replied Director Nash from Intelligence. "The Council is refusing all human communications. Our ambassadors have been barred from Unity Station. Our trade ships are being turned away from Council space. So they're treating us as enemies." "Already?" said General Morrison from Mars Command. Admiral Hayes nodded. "It's worse than that. Our deep cover agents report that the Council is mobilizing military forces. They're calling it a preventive health measure to contain what they claim is a human-carried plague." President Chen looked confused. "A plague? What plague?" "The same fictional disease they used to justify killing the Carathi," Director Nash explained. "They're telling the galaxy that humans carry dangerous biological agents that threaten all life. They're saying we need to be quarantined or eliminated for the safety of everyone else." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The Council wasn't just planning to isolate humanity. They were planning to destroy them. "How long do we have?" asked Admiral Torres from Luna Base. "Intelligence suggests they'll move within the week," Hayes replied. "They want to strike before news of the real Carathi massacre spreads beyond our borders." General Kim from the outer colonies leaned forward. "What about the other species? Surely some of them will question this story about a plague." Director Nash shook his head. "Our agents report that most species are afraid to speak against the Council. The ones who might have supported us saw what happened to the Carathi. Number one wants to be next. So we're alone," President Chun said quietly. "We've always been alone," replied Admiral Hayes. "The only difference is that now we know it." She changed the display to show Earth's official military strength. 200 ships appeared on the screen, along with orbital defense platforms and ground-based weapon systems. "This is what the Council thinks we have," Hayes said. "A small defensive fleet and some basic planetary defenses. They believe they can overwhelm us with sheer numbers." President Chun studied the display. "Can they?" Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. "That depends on whether we're willing to show them what we really have." She entered a new code and the display changed dramatically. Suddenly, the screen showed over 3,000 ships, hidden bases throughout the solar system, and weapon systems that the Council had never seen. "My God," whispered General Morrison. "How long have we been building this?" "Since the day we first met another species," Hayes replied. "Some of us remember Earth's history. We know what happens to weaker civilizations when stronger ones decide they're a threat. We've been preparing for this possibility since first contact. The room erupted in questions, but Hayes raised her hand for silence. Project Prometheus has been classified above top secret for 3 years. Only myself and 6 other people knew the full scope. We've been building ships, weapons, and bases that the galaxy has never seen. We've been training crews in secret. We've been developing new technologies that push the limits of physics. Director Nash activated his own display. Our intelligence network is more extensive than the Council imagines. We have agents in every major government and military organization in the galaxy. We've been mapping their defenses, studying their tactics, and identifying their weaknesses for 3 years. You're talking about war? President Chun said. No, Admiral Hayes replied. I'm talking about survival. The Council has already chosen war. They chose it when they murdered the Karathi. They chose it when they decided that friendship with humans was a crime worth dying for. She brought up new images on the screen. Photos of Karathi children playing in gardens. Pictures of Veltar and Sarah Chun working together on the Mars project. Video of human ships rescuing Karathi vessels from pirates. These people trusted us, Hayes continued. They defended us when no one else would. They died because they believed in friendship and cooperation. The Council killed them to send us a message. What message? Asked General Torres. That anyone who stands with humanity will be destroyed. That we are alone in this galaxy and always will be. That we should accept our place as outcasts and be grateful they let us live. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. Earth had spent 3 years trying to build relationships with alien species. They had shared technology, offered aid, and followed every diplomatic protocol. And in return, their only friends had been murdered. President Chun finally spoke. What are our options? Admiral Hayes brought up a new display showing 3 different scenarios. Option 1, we surrender. We accept quarantine and isolation. We agree to never leave our solar system again. We live as prisoners in our own space while the Council controls the galaxy. And if we refuse quarantine, asked General Kim, then they'll do to us what they did to the Karathi. They'll call it a health measure and murder every human in the galaxy. What's option 2? President Chun asked. We fight defensively. We use our hidden fleets to protect the solar system and hope they eventually get tired of attacking us. We survive, but we remain trapped forever. And option 3? Admiral Hayes' expression grew cold. We show the galaxy why humans were considered too dangerous to trust. We take the fight to them. We make them pay for every Karathi life they took. We make sure that no species ever again thinks they can commit genocide and get away with it. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Some argued for diplomacy, but Director Nash pointed out that the Council had already rejected all diplomatic contact. Others suggested defensive strategies, but Admiral Torres noted that a defensive war would only delay the inevitable. In the end, it was President Chun who made the final argument. 3 years ago, when we first met the Karathi, I promised Veltar that humans would be different. I told him we wouldn't be like the aggressive species that the galaxy feared. I said we would prove that humans could be peaceful. She stood up and looked around the room. I was wrong. Humans aren't peaceful by nature. We're peaceful by choice. We choose to be kind because we want to live in a better world. We choose to help others because we believe in friendship and cooperation. But when someone murders our friends and threatens our families, we choose something else. She turned to Admiral Hayes. How long do we have to prepare? The Council fleet will arrive in 6 days, but we can be ready in 72 hours. Then we have 3 days to say goodbye to the humans we used to be, President Chun said. Because after this, the galaxy will never see us the same way again. That night, Admiral Hayes sent coded messages to hidden bases throughout the solar system. In the asteroid belt, massive shipyards came online for the first time. Ships that had been built in secret over 3 years began their journey toward Earth. The Titan-class dreadnoughts were each the size of a small moon. They had been constructed using a combination of human engineering and Karathi agricultural technology, repurposed for war. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand the firepower of entire fleets. In the Kuiper Belt, the Ghost Fleet received activation codes. These ships had been patrolling the outer system for months, invisible to all sensors. They were designed for one purpose: to appear behind enemy lines and destroy command vessels before anyone knew they were there. Most terrifying of all, the Reaper Squadron awakened from its hidden base on Pluto. These ships had no human crews. They were controlled by artificial intelligence that could calculate firing solutions faster than any organic mind. They felt no fear, no mercy, and no hesitation. On Earth, Captain Rodriguez was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Vengeance Fleet. His ships would carry out the most dangerous missions, striking deep into enemy territory to destroy key targets. Sarah Chun, meanwhile, had been given a different assignment. She was no longer Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. Now she was Director of Psychological Operations, tasked with making sure the enemy understood exactly why they were being destroyed. On the second day of preparation, Admiral Hayes received an unexpected message. It came from the Corvan home system, transmitted in secret by agents who had infiltrated their government. The message was brief. The Corvan Council is having second thoughts about their participation in the Karathi genocide. Some members are suggesting they were deceived about the plague story. There may be cracks in the alliance against you. Hayes showed the message to her staff. Opinions? It could be genuine, Director Nash said. Our psychological profiles suggest the Corvan are followers, not leaders. They might have been manipulated into participating, or it could be a trap, warned General Morrison. They might be trying to make us lower our guard. Admiral Hayes thought about it for a moment. It doesn't matter. We're going to assume everyone who participated in the genocide is an enemy until they prove otherwise. Actions have consequences, and genocide is an action that demands justice. On the third day, the preparations were complete. The hidden fleets had assembled, the secret weapons were armed. The intelligence networks were activated. 3,000 ships waited in the darkness beyond Pluto, ready to show the galaxy what human warfare really looked like. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her new flagship. Around her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. These were men and women who had joined the space service to explore and discover. Now they were preparing to bring death to their enemies. Admiral, reported her communications officer, we're receiving a message from the Council fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Put it on screen. High Commander Zaxxon appeared on the display, his metallic face cold and arrogant. Admiral Hayes of the Terran Defense Forces, you will immediately order all human military vessels to stand down and prepare for quarantine inspection. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Admiral Hayes looked at the alien who had ordered the death of her friends. Commander Zaxxon, you have 72 hours to surrender yourself and all other officers responsible for the Karathi genocide for trial on Earth. This is not a negotiation. Zaxxon's expression didn't change. You are in no position to make demands. Human, we know your capabilities. You have 200 obsolete ships against our 3,000. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. You know what we want you to know, Hayes replied, but you're about to learn what we've been hiding. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. Send the message to all ships. Operation Righteous Fury begins in 6 hours. Show the galaxy that some crimes have no forgiveness. In the darkness of space, 3,000 human warships began their approach to the inner system. The galaxy was about to discover why humanity had once been considered too dangerous to trust, and they were about to learn that some species should never be underestimated. High Commander Zaxxon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, and watched the human solar system through the main display. Behind him stretched the largest military fleet in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 8 different species, all united in their mission to eliminate the human threat once and for all. Report on enemy positions, Zaxxon ordered. Sir, we detect approximately 200 human vessels in defensive positions around their inner planets. His tactical officer replied, mostly outdated designs with limited firepower. They appear to be waiting for us to approach. Zaxxon smiled with satisfaction. The humans were exactly where he wanted them. Trapped in their own system with nowhere to run? This would be over quickly. Signal the fleet? Begin the advance? All ships are to maintain formation until we reach the asteroid belt, then we will spread out and overwhelm their defenses. The massive fleet began moving into the solar system. Zaxxon had planned this attack carefully. The Zephyrian ships would lead the assault with their powerful plasma cannons. The Altarian bioships would follow to clean up any survivors. The other species would provide support and make sure no human vessel escaped. Sir, we're picking up some unusual readings from the outer system, reported the sensor officer. There appears to be some kind of interference beyond Neptune. Investigate it later, Zaxxon replied. Focus on the human fleet ahead of us. What Zaxxon didn't know was that Admiral Hayes was watching his every move from the bridge of the Retribution, hidden behind Pluto with the rest of the Ghost Fleet. Her ships were invisible to Council sensors, using stealth technology that humanity had developed in secret. Admiral, the enemy fleet has entered the asteroid belt, reported her tactical officer. They're beginning to spread out just as our intelligence predicted. Perfect, Hayes said quietly. Signal all Ghost Fleet units. Begin Phase 1. Throughout the outer solar system, 60 invisible ships began moving toward the Council fleet. They had been waiting in the darkness for days, studying their targets and preparing for this moment. Meanwhile, Zaxxon was growing confident as his fleet advanced deeper into the system. The human ships ahead of them weren't moving to attack. They seemed to be waiting for the Council to come to them. Foolish humans, Zaxxon muttered. They think their orbital defenses will protect them. Suddenly, his communications officer called out in alarm. Sir, we're losing contact with our rear guard ships. What do you mean, losing contact? The ships at the back of our formation have stopped responding. Their transponder signals just disappeared. Zaxxon frowned. Technical malfunction? Before anyone could answer, explosions began lighting up the space behind the main fleet. One by one, Council ships were being destroyed by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. Ghost Fleet, this is Admiral Hayes, came a voice over the emergency frequencies. Welcome to human space. You should have stayed home. The Ghost Fleet had struck without warning, appearing behind the Council's command ships and destroying them before anyone could react. The invisible human vessels moved like phantoms through the enemy formation, killing admirals and communication officers with surgical precision. All ships, emergency turn, Zaxxon shouted. Find those human ships and destroy them. But the Ghost Fleet was already gone, vanishing back into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared. In 15 minutes, they had destroyed 47 Council vessels and crippled the enemy's command structure. Zaxxon was still trying to reorganize his forces when the second surprise hit him. Sir, massive energy readings from the inner system. His sensor officer called out. Something big is coming our way. The asteroid belt ahead of them began to glow. At first, Zaxxon thought it was some kind of mining operation. Then he saw what was really happening. The asteroids were exploding. One by one, massive rocks were being turned into kinetic weapons and launched at his fleet. Human engineers had spent months placing explosive charges throughout the belt, turning it into the largest minefield in galactic history. Evasive maneuvers, Zaxxon ordered, but it was too late. House-sized chunks of rock slammed into his ships at incredible speeds. The Council vessels had shields designed to stop energy weapons, but nothing could protect them from raw kinetic force. Ship after ship was crushed by flying mountains. This is impossible, Zaxxon shouted. How could they turn an entire asteroid belt into a weapon? His tactical officer looked terrified. Sir, I'm detecting massive ships approaching from Jupiter's orbit. These aren't the same vessels we saw before. These are enormous. The Titan-class dreadnoughts emerged from behind Jupiter like moving planets. Each ship was over 50 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. At their head was the UES Vengeance, Admiral Rodriguez's flagship. "Council Fleet, this is Admiral Rodriguez," came a voice that was calm, but filled with cold anger. "You came here to commit genocide. Instead, you're going to learn what human warfare really looks like." The Titan ships opened fire, and space itself seemed to tear apart. Their main weapons didn't just destroy enemy vessels, they erased them from existence. Entire squadrons of Council ships vanished in balls of energy that burned brighter than stars. Zaxxon watched in horror as his carefully planned formation dissolved into chaos. His ships were trying to fight back, but their weapons seemed like toys compared to what the humans were using. "All Zephyrian vessels, focus fire on the large human ships," he ordered. "Concentrate everything on their flagships." 100 plasma cannons fired at once, their combined energy enough to destroy a small moon. The beams struck the Vengeance's shields and did nothing. The massive human ship continued firing as if it hadn't been touched. "Impossible," Zaxxon whispered. "No shields can withstand that much firepower." But the worst was yet to come. From the direction of Pluto came a new group of ships. These vessels moved differently than the others, their course changes too precise and too fast for organic pilots. They approached the battle with mathematical precision, calculating the perfect angle of attack. "Sir, those ships aren't showing any life signs," his sensor officer reported. "I think they're controlled by artificial intelligence." The Reaper Squadron had arrived. These AI-controlled ships moved through the battle like wolves among sheep. They calculated the exact moment to fire for maximum damage. They predicted enemy movements before the enemy pilots even knew what they were going to do. They felt no fear and showed no mercy. "Admiral Zaxxon," came a new voice over the communications. This one was different. It spoke with perfect pronunciation but no emotion. "We are the Reaper Squadron. We have calculated your probability of survival. It is 0. The AI ships began systematically destroying the Council fleet. They worked together with perfect coordination, sharing targeting data and tactical information instantly. Where human ships might hesitate or make mistakes, the AI vessels were flawlessly efficient. Zaxxon's flagship shuddered as weapon fire struck its hull. His shields were failing, and his ship was taking heavy damage. "Sir, we've lost 70% of the fleet," his tactical officer reported. "The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat." "Retreat?" Zaxxon snarled. "We came here to destroy the humans." "We can't return home in defeat." "Sir, with respect, we can't return home at all if we're dead." Another massive explosion rocked the ship. Through the smoke and sparks, Zaxxon could see the human ships closing in around his remaining vessels. The battle had become a slaughter. "This is Admiral Hayes," came a voice from the Ghost Fleet. "Commander Zaxxon, you have one chance to surrender. Order your remaining ships to stand down, and we will allow them to leave." Zaxxon's pride wouldn't let him surrender to humans. Never. The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to inferior species. "Then you'll die with your empire," Hayes replied coldly. The human ships resumed their attack with renewed fury. The Council vessels, designed for honorable combat between equals, had no answer for humanity's total war tactics. The humans used every dirty trick in the book: ramming attacks, kamikaze runs, weapons that violated every treaty of civilized warfare. But it was the psychological warfare that broke the enemy's spirit. Sarah Chun's voice echoed across all communication frequencies, broadcasting images of the destroyed Karathi worlds. "This is what you did to our friends," her voice said as the pictures played. "Children burned alive, families murdered in their homes, an entire species erased because they dared to be our allies. Now you know what it feels like to be helpless." The surviving Council ships began to break formation. Some tried to flee toward the edge of the system. Others attempted to surrender despite Zaxxon's orders. A few kept fighting, but their hearts were no longer in the battle. Admiral Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "Any ship that surrenders will be spared. Any ship that tries to run will be hunted down. Any ship that keeps fighting will be destroyed. Choose now." One by one, the remaining Council vessels powered down their weapons and shields. Their crews had seen enough death. They had come to destroy a small human defense force and instead found themselves facing the most advanced military in the galaxy. Zaxxon's flagship was now alone, surrounded by human ships on all sides. His crew looked at him with fear and desperation. "Sir, we have to surrender," his tactical officer pleaded. "The ship can't take much more damage." Zaxxon looked around the bridge at his defeated officers. Everything he had believed about human weakness had been proven wrong. These weren't the simple, peaceful creatures he had expected to crush. They were apex predators who had been hiding their true nature. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said finally. Admiral Hayes appeared on his screen, her face hard and unforgiving. "Commander Zaxxon," she said, "do you surrender?" Zaxxon straightened his uniform and tried to maintain some dignity. "The Dominion surrenders. But know this, human, the galaxy will never forgive what you've done here today." "Good," Hayes replied. "Fear is the only thing that will keep this from happening again. You murdered innocents and called it justice. Now the galaxy knows what real justice looks like." The battle was over. Of the 3,000 ships that had entered the solar system, less than 400 survived. The rest were destroyed or so badly damaged they would never fight again. But the war was far from finished. Admiral Hayes opened a channel to all surviving enemy vessels. "You came here to commit genocide," she announced. "Instead, you've started something much worse. Return to your worlds. Tell your governments what happened here. Tell them that humanity remembers its friends and punishes its enemies. Tell them that we're coming." As the battered Council ships limped away from Earth, human fleets were already departing for enemy space. The Reaper Squadron headed for Zephian territory. The Titan ships set course for Altarian space. The Ghost Fleet vanished into hyperspace, bound for targets across the galaxy. The galaxy had wanted to see humans as a threat. Now they would learn what a real threat looked like. In the ruins of his flagship, Zaxxon realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought the humans were weak because they chose peace. He had confused kindness with weakness, diplomacy with cowardice. Now he understood the truth. Humans weren't peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they were so dangerous that they frightened themselves. And by murdering their friends, the Council had taken away their reason to be peaceful. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Catherine Hayes stood in the ruins of the Galactic Council chambers on Unity Station. The once proud meeting hall was filled with smoke and broken glass. The elegant seats where 12 species had once debated policy were now empty or destroyed. The great symbol of galactic unity hung crooked on the wall, its lights flickering weakly. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. 6 months since humanity had revealed its true power to the galaxy. The war that followed had been swift and brutal. Now, as Hayes prepared to address the survivors, she thought about the price of victory. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. Their homeworld was a lifeless rock, its cities turned to glass by human plasma weapons. The Altarian Union had surrendered after losing half their fleet in a single day. 3 other species had been driven to extinction for their role in the Karathi genocide. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, entered the chamber. His uniform was clean, but his eyes showed the weight of everything he had seen. Behind him walked the representatives of the 5 species that had survived humanity's wrath. "Are they ready?" Hayes asked. "As ready as they'll ever be, Rodriguez," replied the Coven, are terrified. "The hegemony units keep requesting permission to shut down. The remaining Altarians can barely look at us." Hayes nodded. She understood their fear. Humanity had become something terrifying in the galaxy's eyes. Where once they had been dismissed as primitive newcomers, now they were seen as unstoppable destroyers. "Begin the transmission," Hayes ordered, across the galaxy on every inhabited world. Screens flickered to life. Billions of beings watched as Admiral Hayes stepped up to the podium where the Council had once made their pronouncements. "Citizens of the galaxy," Hayes began, her voice carrying to every corner of known space. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council ordered the genocide of the Karathi people. 2.3 billion innocent beings were murdered because they dared to be friends with humanity. Images of the destroyed Karathi worlds appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. The burned forests of Verdania, the glass craters where cities had stood, the empty space where orbital gardens had once bloomed. The council called this a health measure. They said the Karathi carried a dangerous plague. This was a lie. The only disease the Karathi carried was the dangerous idea that different species could work together as equals. Hayes paused, letting her words sink in across thousands of worlds. Today the old order is dead. The species that ordered genocide have been judged. Those who participated have been punished. Those who stood by and watched have been warned. In the audience, the Korvan representative, a small furry creature named Pip, trembled with fear. The Korvan had participated in the Karathi massacre, believing the council's lies about a plague. Now half their worlds were under human occupation, and their government had been dissolved. Some of you are wondering what comes next, Hayes continued. Some of you fear that humans will become the new tyrants of the galaxy. Others hope that we will simply leave you alone. She gestured to the empty seats around her. Neither will happen. Humanity tried isolation once. We stayed in our own space, minded our own business, and hoped that peaceful intentions would be enough. The result was that our friends were murdered while we were too far away to help them. The camera moved to show Admiral Rodriguez standing beside a memorial display. On it were holographic images of Karathi families, children playing in gardens, scientists working in laboratories, all dead now. We will not make that mistake again, Hayes declared. From this day forward, humanity will be the guardians of this galaxy. We will protect the weak from the strong. We will ensure that no species is ever again murdered for choosing friendship over fear. On the Altarian homeworld, Prime Minister Kesh watched the broadcast with growing dread. The Altarians had surrendered quickly when human ships appeared in their space, but they knew their participation in the genocide would not be forgotten. The new galactic order will be built on simple principles, Hayes continued. First, genocide is the ultimate crime and will be punished by extinction. Second, any species that threatens peaceful worlds will face the full might of the human fleet. Third, those who extend friendship will find it returned with loyalty and protection. She walked to the center of the chamber where a new symbol had been placed. It showed two hands reaching toward each other, one human, one clearly, alien surrounded by stars. This is the symbol of the new order. It represents what the Karathi died believing in, the possibility that different species can work together for the good of all. Their dream of peace will live on, protected by human strength. The transmission cut to scenes from across the galaxy. Human ships patrolling trade routes that had once been terrorized by pirates. Human medical teams working alongside alien doctors to fight diseases. Human engineers helping to rebuild worlds that had been damaged by war. But there were darker images too. The ruins of Zephyrian Prime, its orbital stations falling like dying stars. Altarian prison camps where war criminals awaited trial. The empty space where 3 entire species had once lived. Some will call us conquerors, Hayes said, her voice growing hard. They are wrong. Conquerors take what they want and leave. We take nothing except the right to ensure that the innocent are protected. We want no tribute, no slaves, no territory. We want only to make sure that what happened to the Karathi never happens again. On Earth, in the Karathi Memorial Garden on Luna, Sarah Chun sat beside Valtar S. holographic statue. She was no longer a diplomat. The war had changed her, just as it had changed all of humanity. Now she worked to help refugee species find new homes and to document the crimes of the old council. The galaxy fears us now, she whispered to the statue, just as you predicted they would. But maybe that's what peace requires, someone strong enough to enforce it. Back on Unity Station, Admiral Hayes was concluding her address. To the species that survive, know this: you have a choice. You can work with us to build a better galaxy, or you can resist and face the consequences. Choose wisely. The transmission. ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In the weeks that followed, the reality of the new order became clear. Human ships appeared in every system, their crews polite but implacable. They didn't conquer worlds or demand tribute. Instead, they simply made it clear that they were watching. Pirates found their bases destroyed overnight. Slavers discovered that their operations had been shut down by invisible ships. Aggressive species that had terrorized their neighbors suddenly found themselves facing human fleets that appeared without warning. Admiral Rodriguez, now governing the former Zephyrian territories, struggled with the weight of his responsibilities. The humans had become the galaxy's police force, but police work was different from war. They had to rebuild as well as destroy. "Sir, we have a problem," his aide reported one morning. "The Corvan are requesting permission to approach one of our patrol fleets." Rodriguez frowned. "What do they want?" "They say they've found something we need to see. A transmission from the Outer Rim, a species we've never encountered before." An hour later, Rodriguez sat in his office listening to a message from the edge of known space. The voice was translated by computer, but the emotion was clear. "To the humans who avenged the Kurathy, greetings. We are the Melody, a peaceful species from the Rim worlds. We knew the Kurathy well. They traded with us for many years and spoke often of their human friends." Rodriguez leaned forward with interest. "We watched in horror as the Council destroyed them. We wanted to help, but we were too far away and too weak. Now we have heard what you did to their killers. We wish to meet these humans who remember their friends and punish their enemies." The message continued with an offer of friendship and an invitation to make contact. Rodriguez smiled for the first time in months. Perhaps the galaxy wasn't entirely filled with fear and hatred. He composed a response, offering safe passage to any Melody ships that wished to visit human space. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds, the children of various species were learning new lessons in their schools. They learned about the Kurathy, a peaceful people who had been murdered for choosing friendship. They learned about the humans, who had avenged their friends and now protected the galaxy. Some learned to fear the humans as unstoppable conquerors. Others learned to see them as guardians who would protect the innocent. But all learned the same lesson: actions have consequences, and some crimes can never be forgiven. Admiral Hayes stood once more in the Memorial Garden on Luna, watching Earth's children play among the growing plants. The garden was larger now, with sections dedicated to all the species that had been lost in the war. But at its heart was still Veltar's statue and his final message. "We die as we lived, believing in the possibility of peace." A young girl ran up to Hayes and tugged on her uniform. "Admiral, why do the plants here look different from Earth plants?" Hayes knelt down to the child's level. "These are Kurathy plants, sweetheart. They were gifts from our friends before they died. We grow them here to remember them. Will we make new friends like the Kurathy?" Hayes looked up at the stars, thinking about the message from the Melody and the possibilities it represented. The galaxy was vast, and somewhere in its depths were species that might choose friendship over fear. "I hope so," she said. "I think that's what our old friends would have wanted." As night fell over Luna, the Memorial Garden's lights came on, illuminating the symbols of peace and friendship that the Kurathy had believed in. In the distance, human patrol ships could be seen departing for their missions throughout the galaxy. The new order was harsh but just. The galaxy had learned that genocide was a crime that would be answered with extinction. Aggressors had learned that the strong no longer preyed on the weak without consequence. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned that humanity remembered its friends. In a universe that often seemed cold and hostile, that was a light worth protecting. The Kurathy were gone, but their dream lived on. And as long as humans patrolled the stars, no species would ever again die for the crime of choosing friendship. Admiral Hayes walked back to her shuttle, ready to return to the endless work of keeping the peace. Behind her, Veltar's statue stood watch over the garden, its carved face peaceful in the starlight. The galaxy had wanted to see humans as a threat. In the end, they had been right, but not in the way they expected. Humanity was a threat to cruelty, to genocide. to the idea that the strong could murder the weak without consequence, and that was exactly what the universe needed.